Well, I won't be doing a lot of after-the-fact narration in this video. I'm losing my voice now. I've been battling this through Christmas for several days. Not sure what it is, but hopefully it seems to be clearing up now and I'm getting my voice back. But I wanted to go ahead and do this video. If you remember, this is where we left off yesterday in respect to the video. It was late in the afternoon. The sun was already going down. I got called away, so I decided to just quit for the day and start again the next morning, which I did. I think it was probably around 4 a.m. when I came back out to get started again. And I went ahead and just put the wiring harness, the new one, in the motorcycle, laid everything out, and then I'm going to walk you through that and show you some of the details bringing this up. And if there's enough room in this part 2 video, I'll go ahead and do the test ride as well toward the end. But this is wrapping up the Gen 2 install in this video. This is part 2. Well, it's early the next morning. I kind of got tied up yesterday. I didn't get to spend but a couple of more hours working on the bike. I wanted to give you a summary of where I'm at right now before I continue. I have 6.5 hours in the bike itself related to the EFI Gen 2 upgrade. Now, having done this once, I could probably easily knock an hour off of that because I would know where left and right was. I would know where to tie off. I figured out right where these split out. Tie it off right about where the struts welded in. That seems to work out. I would know about mounting the ECU. The picture wasn't the clearest, but you can see it down in there. It is turned sideways, and the ECU itself is in a rubber mount. I would know not to go ahead and put the air branch tubes and stuff on. Now, fortunately, I did not crimp anything down. I did go ahead and put it all in here, and I started to crimp like the instructions said, and I said, you know what? Why don't I just wait on that? Sure enough, it was just easier for me to loosen the air box back up, take the branch pipes, the upper branch pipes off. It just gave me more visibility to see and get in there. I'm happier doing it that way. I could have done it the other way. Other things to watch out for. I still have not satisfactorily routed the right-hand side. It tells you to go under the branch tube. And I'm just awful close to the clutch wire. And I'm concerned about this falling into and rubbing on the clutch wire. So I went over the branch tube, and the neutral wire is, even here, it's a little short for where it is. If they want you to even go over this clutch cable, this neutral wire is short. It should be about 3 to 4 inches longer, and this would be acceptable. So I still have to work this out. And I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet, but I will figure that out so that it's safe. Everything else is lightly plugged in where I believe it goes, and I'm double checking that. And I do have a few connectors like this one. I don't know what this is for or where it goes. It's an injector style connector. It's mid-loom. I haven't seen it referenced in the instructions yet. Maybe I will. Again, I don't have anything tight. I'm going to follow the electrical loom from the back all the way forward and tighten everything up once I get happy with the positions. I do have the battery mounted back in. It did well. Everything fits behind it. I have the fuse box on where it goes. See if I can think of anything else. I do not have the throttle cable back on yet. It's still off, but I will get to that. I pulled everything up front into the light bucket, and the light bucket is there's the connector for the light itself. Oh, this does not fit through. I'm going to have to shave it off. You can see there, it's just the plastic coat. I'm going to have to take a knife and scrape that off to get it to go through to get my light back. But no big deal. I do not have the relay fully plugged in because I'm going to be putting a LED relay in here. I just put that in there to get the position. It looks like a rat's nest just like it did before, so I'm doing it right. I did make one special tool. Nothing too fancy. Found out that these cap nuts there, this side you can get to up underneath, but you can't go straight in, and it's very close. You're hitting the throttle body. Over here you're fine, but here I was having trouble getting it to fit. I tried a ball socket. It just wasn't getting it. I didn't feel like I could get enough pressure on it to really tighten it down like it ought to be. So I just took a grinder wheel and zoop, cut that right off so it fit. No big deal. I've got several of them. Here's another one. This actually fits the fender screw on the Retro, the rear fender. You can reach in there and tighten it down if it gets loose or needs to be undone. And yeah, it's not the same size as this, so I had to make another one. All in all, I would say it wasn't bad. Oh, the injectors. The injectors took a lot more pressure than I was expecting. What I did was I put oil on it as suggested. I put oil on the upper O-ring in the fuel rail, this piece. And I actually ended up putting a little oil in the fuel rail itself to lubricate the surface. I just used motorcycle oil. And I got it pushed in. I pushed this in and I used the screw. I would tighten it, rock it and push, tighten it, twist it and push, worked it in until it was tight. And now it's good. And notice that this turns. So when you are putting this on, make sure you don't leave it too far in. Straight up seems to work pretty good. And miss over here, there's plenty of room on the right side. Not as much. You can see this is actually very close. I actually had to turn this over a little bit more to make sure that I missed the fuel line. Again, I don't have anything crimped yet. I'm going to come back and double check and crimp. I just like to keep things so that I can move them around, and I've had to make adjustments and move things around. Even my zip ties, I only have a few, but once everything is done, figured out, plugged in, then I will go back and tighten everything, apply all the zip ties, and clean this up. I can't think of anything else that I had trouble with. Like I said, I got 6.5 hours into this related specifically to the EFI install kit. Now I have another hour, believe it or not. I still haven't quite figured out what or how this was even working, because we had an exhaust leak on the left side. I pulled this out and this was wedged. This is just a crush gasket. This side had 2 crush gaskets on it and this big thick crappy gasket with goop on it that I've spent an hour just cleaning up the exhaust port, a good 45 minutes on this side and 15 minutes on the other side, because it was good, but I like to have never got this out of there. It was packed all the way back in and crushed and partially sticking out into the exhaust port itself. So I don't know what the story behind this. It had that 2-in-1 exhaust on it when we got it, because we bought this rig used, and apparently it had 2 of these in there. One was on top, the other one was wedged way in the back, and honestly I had to get down with my glasses on to look in there because I knew something wasn't right. And I finally got a piece of it with a pair of needle nose and started pulling and pulled this out. But that's why we had an exhaust leak down here on the bottom, is the I know what that other gasket was on here now too, because this wouldn't seal, so they just took it off and put yet another gasket on it and tightened it down. But I got all that cleaned off. I think we're good there. that cost me a little time. The right side was good. Came off, did exactly what it was supposed to, and there's no goop on it. I don't know what that was. It was like a silver cement paste just all over this. And I had to sit here, and when I thought I had it all, I would get more off. I had to sit here with a window-style razor blade and clean the surface off. But I think the root of the problem was whoever did this did not know this was still in there, and they just doubled up. I can't get this to line up. Well, duh. Short side goes to the airbox, lines right up. Why don't I walk back here and use this as an example? Gee, who would have thunk it? I don't know. Sometimes you get focused. You don't think. I certainly can't use it as an example for routing wires or anything because this is completely different. But for the throttle bodies, the airbox, all those things, it's the same. So I don't know. My excuse is I'm just tired this morning. And oxygen sensors in. I finished up all the routing. Got the branch tubes on. Everything's good to go. So it's getting close at this point. I am going to have to work the exhaust on here and get all that taken care of before I do too terribly much. But so far as the wiring harness goes, it's pretty much solved. I just need to finish zip tying everything to line it up. Well, I'm actually finished. Everything's tied up, installed, spaced. I'm on the last page, I think, of the instructions. I've gone through everything. I've double-checked tightening all the bolts, tightening everything down. I'm still going to be applying a few zip ties here and there as I make final adjustments and get things like I want them. I still have to roll the sidecar in and get it attached. But before I do that, I need to address my exhaust down here, as in there's no mufflers, and get that installed. So I will be doing that next, not part of the kit install, but the kit install is actually completed. Really depends on your skill and comfort level. This is a full 8-hour job, just the kit install. If you start with the fuel tank off and the seat off, of course, and you're ready to go, I would say this is easily an 8-hour job to install the harness, if that's all you're doing, to go through that and get it installed like you want it. I'll give you a quick look at everything. Again, I have not connected the battery. I'll be doing that shortly and doing a quick test of everything. But this is the install. I think it looks fairly clean. Like I said, now I got to get my exhaust on. I got to get the sidecar reattached. Yeah, the wiring install's done. I didn't think it was too difficult. It is a little tedious. Some things to pay attention to are, the orientation of items. The pictures in the guide are not the best, so if you're doing this, I'll try to give you some cheats here. Short side goes to the airbox. On the right side, there is an R stamped on it. Again, I still have a few zip ties and stuff to take care of things. I did use a lot of dielectric grease on fittings, connectors. I just think that's prudent myself. It's not necessary that you do that, but I did. And the other thing I like dielectric grease for is it does keep the water out, but it also makes them easier to unplug later. If you need to push them and unplug them, they don't get stuck as badly. Of course, I've got the wires bundled over here that'll go to the sidecar when I reconnect it. And when I do the first test, I'll turn the camera on and let you see what's happening here. Again, everything is reconnected, looks good. I'm down to just a fuel tank install and all the other extra little things I need to do while I have it like this. is where I'm at. The throttle cables were not difficult to install. You can see where the throttle splitter kind of ended up, and it can still move around. The further you push it back, of course, the more these will bow out. It seems comfortable right there, so I'll probably zip tie this and fix it up, and get it like I want it. But all the nuts and bolts have been tightened. I'm going to go back through and double check those just one more time, and double check all the connectors as I tie them up. Guess I'll quit talking now. I guess I need to get in gear and get the exhaust installed on this thing. Got the black exhaust on. I'm going to go ahead and do the LED bulbs for the rest of the lights that are on the bike itself. The exhaust turned out good. Took me a little longer than anticipated. Just because of this black coating, I was extra careful to try not to scratch things. And that's it, folks. Wiring harness is in. I did a quick crank test after I primed it. It runs. The new exhaust is on. I adjusted the valves. I put the LED conversion package in. The black Ural is on the tank now. I think that looks much better. Installed everything. If I forgot the panel, I'll put the panel back on. Couple of other things. I'm exhausted. I would say taking the sidecar on and off to adjust the right side. Maybe a bit more work than it's worth, but anything over and above that, it's actually not difficult to take the sidecar off. I'm sure I will be zip tying and doing odds and ends here and there. I don't want to forget, I changed the brake fluid. It's over 2 years old, and just a good idea to change your brake fluid, so I did that. So that's why I'm tired. Got a lot done on it today. And I'm going to roll it out and get it cranked. But as for the wiring harness, the new EFI, it is done. So I got it outside. I'll go ahead and crank it proper. I've only cranked it enough to prime it on the pump, kept turning it on and off till it was running clear. And I cranked it until it fired up and then pretty much shut it right back down. So it's probably still got air in the line in the injectors, but let's see how it does. Doesn't sound too bad for a first crank. A little bit of a rough run, but it's cold, and like I said, I'm sure it's got air in it. After it gets hot and running a little bit, I'll go back around, check all the cables, check the wiring, check all the torques. I can smell that new exhaust. The LED is really, really bright, the LED bulbs. Like I said, I just got this one bulb I can't get out of there. Yeah, it's smoothing on out now. Get some air out of it. Oh yeah. Ooh, that exhaust. Cooking it. That's gonna have to stay outside a little while. yeah, you can see the smoke coming off the exhaust. Oop, I forgot to hook up my sidecar brake. Yeah, I'll grab that. I had to forget something. Of all things to forget, that's probably a good one. Yeah, smoothing on out now. Sounding good. The truth will be when she rides it for the first time. I'll take it out the first time, do a quick check over, but when she rides it, I'll hear the truth then of what she thinks, because she's complained about how this bike has run since the day we got it. We've improved it, but it still stumbled, it had trouble, and the exhaust leak that I found didn't help it. I'm sure that was an issue. It was the wrong exhaust for this year model. The oxygen sensors were too far away. With this new exhaust, they're now up where they should be. So all that ganging up together, I think, is going to make a big, big difference. It's sounding good now. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it doesn't turn out to be too long, but should be complete. If you're thinking about installing one of these kits yourself, I would caution, if you don't do your own maintenance and if you've never taken the fuel tank off, if you've never done these things, how mechanical are you? It's not hard, but you should set aside 2 days for it. I've got 9 hours in just the wiring harness, getting that in, getting it right, getting everything done. Everything else is everything else I did. So think about it in those terms, your confidence level. It makes a huge improvement to the bike, the way it runs. I can tell you that with mine from riding it. It's just a huge, huge difference in performance. So, you know, it's ultimately, of course, up to you. But if you have especially if you have a retro, because they don't make these anymore. Now, with that, I would caution you that this wiring harness is not made for the retros, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to install. And, you know, going to somewhere like Heindel and having John do it, probably, I wouldn't say that would be a bad idea. But if you've got a retro you really love and want to keep, 2014 through an 18, that's an option for you. If you have a 2014 through an 18 CT or gear up you really want to keep, you can do it yourself. It's not too terribly hard. Just set aside the time to do it and, you know, be patient. I did want to follow up with a couple of things. The one thing I noticed is the side panel. I knew this before. The fuse box sticks out just slightly further than the old one did. And it kind of disrupts this panel going on a little bit. Not bad. And I just went ahead and put a zip tie through the little hole here for extra security, especially till I see how it does. It's just not as clipped on as it was. And when I say a little bit, I'm talking maybe 1/8 of an inch. It's just a little bit, so I can tell that the panel behaves differently. But other than that, what was the most difficult part? And I'm not kidding. For me, the most difficult part was getting that rubber grommet into there, because you have to stretch the grommet over the cable before you hook it up, run the cable through, and then with the cable running through it, you have to get it into this metal bracket. And I tell you what, that's what took me the longest. Any single thing that I did without making progress, meaning I got stumped and was fighting with it to get it done. That little rubber grommet is what stumped me or slowed me down the most. How did the manual do? It did pretty good. It is not a procedural manual. It is a checklist, and it is not going to tell you how to do what it is you need to do. Now, there's a few hints in here. There's some things in here, but like when it tells you to remove the gas tank, it's going to show you step by step things to do, but it's not going to explain how to disconnect the fuel sensor. That's kind of oversimplistic, but you know, it will tell you to just do things without clearly discussing the full procedure as you go on. That's not to say that it's incomplete. I'm trying to think of a good example. For example, it will tell you to simply install the lower flange on here. To install this. It does go into enough detail that you know what's going on, but it doesn't mention anything about needing wrenches, because that's a tight spot, so you'll have difficulty getting a wrench in there. But overall, I thought it was a very good manual. Was complete. I can't think of too much that was missing. Maybe some minor stuff, like maybe it didn't say disconnect this wire or to reconnect one. But again, nothing stands out. It was sufficient to do what needs to be done. Pictures are a little bit lacking in places. For example, now if you do this on the PC, maybe you can zoom in and see better. But as an example, when it tells you to mount the ECU bracket on the fender, I had to really get down on the picture because I couldn't tell if it was trying to get me to mount it straight up and down or sideways, and it's sideways. Was the only way that it really made sense anyway. But yeah, overall it's a good manual. I can tell they put a lot of work into it. And, again, it doesn't go into like what to torque things to or any of that, but it does give you the details enough that you'll know what you need to do. So I guess that's it. And I'll cut to some other video doing something, saying something else.
She did better though. I didn't have to crank it 5 times. I feel bad.
So that was the first ride on the new EFI.
I like it. I think it's going to take some getting used to. it just runs completely different. You wouldn't think it was the same bike.
What do you think?
Lots of low end torque.
Yeah, the low end torque improves a lot.
Lots of power.
What do you think of the extra boot room?
I like that too.
You don't feel like you're bumping into the throttle bodies all the time.
Yeah, because it's amplifier.
So we're going to fill them up with fuel and go for a ride. I mean, still, I got 39 and you got 41 or 40. Almost 42. Wow. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it was a little long. That was kind of intentional. As I watched the footage, I thought, you know, if I were getting ready to do this, I would want to see as much as I could and kind of see the experience and what's happening to the bike and the changes. Is it really worth the investment? Because these upgrade kits, they're not exactly cheap, but I think it is cheaper than buying a new bike. If you really do love the rig that you're riding, especially if you have a retro, or if you have a gear up or a CT that you've kitted out and you've got it just like you like it, I think it's a very worthwhile upgrade to install this Keihin Gen2 EFI kit. On the CT and the gear up, again, don't be intimidated. It's really a rather simple thing to do. Nothing on here is complicated. Nothing takes minute adjustment. It's not like you're trying to set gear lashes or press bearings in and out. And if you've done that and know how to do that, then definitely this is a slam dunk so far as being able to do this. It's really about simply removing the wiring, putting the new wiring in, and connecting everything back up correctly. And with the guide, plus the SovietSteeds.com forum, you've always got me you can reach out to if you're doing this. Send me a message, I'll try to answer it. But you can get support from the community as well if something happens and you're wondering where does this plug in or how does this work. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you again.